This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV.com. RFVideo was kind enough to let me post a clip from their interview with Carlos Colon, the WWE Hall of Famer who owns World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico, a company I used to work for, and also a company that Bruiser Brody was murdered by the booker of the company at the time when he worked for them back in July of 1988. Carlos made some unusual comments while being questioned by RFVideo about Bruiser Brody and the murder. So I am just going to give my 2 cents about some of the comments he made.
What happened, with Bruiser Brody and Jose Gonzalez and Invader #1 and the locker room?
Well,
and the family?
I really wouldn't like to go into it because I don't know really much of it.
Carlos Colon said he'd like to get into the subject of the murder, but he doesn't know much about it. I have a bit of an issue with that because from the reports I've heard and the people that were there giving me testimony, Carlos seems to have been the first person to enter the shower room after the incident occurred. The incident occurred in his company. It was his booker involved in the incident and his top star. He testified at the trial, and it took place in his dressing room. So for someone that says he doesn't know much about it, he probably knows more about it than anyone other than Invader, Jose Gonzalez, the guy that actually performed the stabbing. So that's a load of bullshit in my opinion.
You were the very first person, I believe, on the scene after the stabbing took place. And is it true that Bruiser Brody's final words to you were pretty much to ask you to take care of his family?
Not really. He, I really, when we went into the room, that what happened had already happened.
Right.
I just helped him out and we put him on the floor, and the doctor was there.
Carlos Colon stated when he went into the shower room, what happened had already happened. I just helped him out and put him on the floor. The doctor was there. So this is in conflict with the testimony Dutch Mantel gave me and Tony Atlas gave me, who both said it was paramedics who were the first medical staff on the scene, and it took them 45 minutes to get on the scene. According to what Carlos is saying here, he basically took Brody out of the shower room, brought him onto the dressing room floor, and basically the doctor was right there to work on him. So that is in conflict with everyone's story about no doctor being on the scene. And from what I understand, this whole issue probably could have been avoided. The actual death could have been avoided if Brody had received medical attention sooner. So Carlos saying that a doctor was on the scene from the moment Brody got out of the shower is a little suspicious to me.
Carlos Colon shot by me as I was holding Brody up. Pushed Jose up against the wall, said, "No, Jose, no, Jose." And Brody looked at me and said, "Brother, I'm hurt. I'm hurt. Don't let them hurt me anymore." He didn't say him. Don't let them hurt me anymore. So I laid him on the floor. I said, "Don't worry, ain't nobody gonna do nothing to you." So then the ambulance, after 45 minutes, the ambulance came in.
Brody was on the floor, and everybody they didn't know what to do, and he's trying to call an ambulance, and the ambulance didn't get there, or the medical personnel didn't get there till 45 minutes later.
Where were you before the actual incident happened? You were running the show, or were you?
I was in the dressing room there. We were all there. All the boys were there.
You were in the same dressing room as Brody, or
as Brody. We were all there in the same room.
Carlos stated he was in the dressing room when the incident occurred, yet at the same time he's saying he doesn't know what happened. So I find it a little unusual that he was on the scene and yet he claims he doesn't know what happened.
And what happened after you heard the commotion? What did you do?
We went in, and my partner went in, Victor, and we separated them, and I didn't even know that he was hurt, that until the doctor started
Oh, you saw, was Frank lying on the ground at this point in the shower bleeding?
No, he wasn't bleeding. You know, they were standing there. We separated like you and this kid.
Right.
Started fighting. You know, we just pulled them apart.
Carlos claimed he went into the shower room with his partner, Victor Jovica, and they separated Invader and Bruiser Brody. And he claims he didn't know that Brody was hurt until the doctor started working on Brody. RFVideo asked if Brody was bleeding. Carlos said, no, we just separated them. We just pulled them apart. Now, in Tony Atlas's interview with me, he stated that the doctor at the hospital, when Atlas later took him to the hospital, stayed in the ambulance with him, said Brody had 2 8-inch cuts, one in the intestines and one in the liver. So Carlos is trying to tell us that there was no blood in the shower room and he had no idea Brody was stabbed. I call bullshit on that.
The guy come out and say he had 2 8-inch cuts. One cut the liver, the other cut his intestine. The cut that cut his intestine, they fixed that. He said, that's fixed. He said, we're working on the liver part.
When did you realize that Brody had been stabbed?
When the doctor came over.
Did you realize how bad it was at first?
I didn't know, no.
What happened with the ambulance? Why did it take so long? It was like 25 minutes, I guess, before the actual ambulance arrived.
I don't know how long it was, but I don't think it was that long. It took a little time, but not. I don't think 25 minutes.
When Carlos Colon was asked by RFVideo, why did it take so long for an ambulance to arrive, RFVideo said they'd heard it was 25 minutes. As I said before, both Atlas and Dutch said it was more like 45 minutes. Carlos responded, it took a little time, but I don't think that long. So here's a contradiction here. Carlos goes from saying the moment Brody was out of the shower and placed on the floor, a doctor took him right away, to saying that it actually took a little time for medical help to arrive. That's a red flag right there.
So he laid on the floor of that dressing room for at least 45 minutes before they even got there.
The guy was an old lady, an old man, because they didn't send young paramedics there because nothing ever happened, you know. We get the cuts on the head and they put a band-aid on it, you know, a couple of, that's all they did, was put a little stuff on the head. So it was never no serious.
They're figuring less.
Right, that's just show anyway. So they didn't send real strong people there. They didn't know how serious the incident was. So anyway, the guy, they couldn't lift Brody. Because Brody was over 300 pounds, they couldn't lift him. So they came, with somebody help, said we can't lift him. So everybody, they turned it back. Turned it back. So I said, I help. So I got up, I put my arm in, I squatted all the way down, got underneath Brody. Brody said, don't drop me, brother. I said, don't worry. I said, I curl more than you weigh. So he started smiling a little bit, so I pulled the thing up until it clicked. Then I pushed him on the ambulance.
The little Puerto Rican paramedics, excuse me, they couldn't get him up, and so Tony just picked him up and took him out.
Do you think there was a cover-up at all? I mean, we did interviews with like Tony Atlas and Savio Vega, and they said that the office covered up the actual murder. And I mean, do you think there was a cover-up at all?
No, we've not. The only guy that could have covered was Jovic and I, and we didn't do that.
Right.
You know, we told the judge and in the courtroom, we said what we saw. We didn't really, because I didn't see any stabbing, I didn't see any weapon, I didn't see anything.
One of the most comical things Carlos says in this interview is the only guys that could have covered it up was Jovica and I. And as he says this, he literally squirms. His body language clearly indicates deception there. He said he told the judge in the courtroom what he saw. He says he didn't see any stabbing, any weapon. He didn't see anything. So earlier in this interview, Carlos said he was in the dressing room the whole time, yet he's saying here he seemed to have had no idea that a stabbing occurred, that any weapon was used, or actually anything happened at all, because he says he didn't see anything.
He was arrested Tuesday, never spent a day in jail. His bail was made. He just went down there and presented himself to the magistrate, I guess, in Puerto Rico. He'd never spent a day in jail. I don't even think he was even in handcuffs. And
was it even a news story there?
Oh, a big story.
Oh, okay. So
huge story.
The public knew about it.
Huge story. It was front page news. But I knew that he had been found not guilty before I got the subpoena. I had just heard it that morning that the jury had declared him not guilty.
They deliberated for an hour or something.
An hour, and they had lunch. And somebody said, well, how could that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it could happen. Brody, they used Brody's character as a wild man against him. Because everybody on that jury had watched wrestling. And this is what we're talking about, hardcore fans believe it. Well, you know, Puerto Rico's pretty hardcore. And you didn't hear that wrestling's fake in Puerto Rico so much. Because they thought it was blood and guts, and it was. But when they sit on that jury, the defense attorneys argued that Brody was a drug head, and he was out of his mind, and he was a psycho, and he was dangerous, and he was menacing. And so when they saw that, defense attorney described him like that, they believed it. Now, Jose Gonzalez, the Invader, was basically a national hero. So, okay, and you got 12 Puerto Ricans on a jury, and it was an American guy that they thought was could be dangerous. And it was never in doubt that Jose Gonzalez killed Brody. That was never in doubt. What they were arguing really was it self-defense. And so the jury determined, yeah, it was self-defense because regardless of how you feel about it, that's how they judged it.
But no one seems to argue that Brody did not have a knife when he walked into
Brody did not have a knife. He had no reason to have a knife.
He thought he was going to get booking instructions.
Well, I also heard that they owed him a lot of money.
Carlos Colon, hey, brother, you deserted us. I said, what do you mean you deserted us? I said, y'all stab a guy to death right in front of me, and then you send people up to my room to mess with me. Then the cops covered it up.
Murders in Puerto Rico all the time. For people that don't know this, crazy.
Yeah, and the cops never. The court. You can ask Dutch Mattel. Both me and Dutch, we supposed to be there. They didn't say me, Dutch, or nobody, the information. I told them, I said, y'all don't even have to pay. I said, I paid for my own ticket. You know, ticket was cheap back then, you know. A round trip was like $300 for a round trip ticket. And then out of New York, probably about $250 for a round trip ticket. I was gonna just fly in, do my stuff, go back to the airport and fly back out. They never contacted me. That's the only reason I didn't testify. Not because I was afraid or didn't want to. I wanted to testify. That's why I'm telling my story now.
Do you think it was a case of self-defense? Do you think that, I mean, obviously Jose Gonzalez said that, you know, self-defense. Do you believe it was really self-defense?
Well, I don't know, really, I don't know.
When RFVideo asked Carlos Colon if he believes the act was in self-defense, he says he doesn't know, he really doesn't know. And we know that the court found that Jose Gonzalez, Invader #1, was acting in self-defense. However, all reports say that Brody went into that locker room without any weapon, and Jose came in there with a weapon, allegedly under a towel. The whole thing is very bizarre, and it's a highly unfortunate situation, and it's highly unfortunate that it doesn't seem like a proper investigation was done in this situation at all.
After that had happened, I believe in 2005, you had the Bruiser Brody Memorial Cup. Do you think that was in poor taste for the company to promote it as the Bruiser Brody Memorial Show, or?
No, because he was one of our great stars.
Okay.
Like we have the Abdullah Memorial, and we have, you know.
RFVideo asked Carlos Colon if he felt it was in poor taste that Carlos and Victor Jovica ran a Bruiser Brody Memorial Cup at the same stadium where Brody was murdered, but in 2005. Carlos Colon stated that he did not feel this was in poor taste, as Brody was one of their big stars. He also said that he had ran an Abdullah the Butcher memorial event. I'm not sure how you can run a memorial event for someone that's still alive. Abdullah the Butcher is still alive. I myself did wrestle in that stadium in the past when I wrestled for WWC Puerto Rico. I wrestled against James Storm there on December the 10th, 2005. I wrestled Black Pain there on October 28th, 2006. And on January the 6th, 2007, I successfully defended the WWC tag team titles in that stadium. So I did wrestle there 3 times. I checked the internet. The stadium was renovated in recent years. I did find a video of one of the shower rooms in the stadium. However, they have renovated the stadium, so the door is a little different. The shower room was like a flip door that would flip back and forth. When I was there, it was like clear material, not glass, but like light could come through it a little bit. Now it appears the doors have been changed to metal, but I will put up this little video of a shower room at the stadium just so you guys can get a little bit of an idea of what the shower rooms looked like there.
Of course, when you get in those showers, the ceramic showers, you know, sound echoes and bounces.
Yeah, for people that don't know that shower, there's like a flipping door that flips open to it, and it's like a brick shower room.
Yeah,
right?
It is. Ceramic. I call it ceramic.
One day I hope to find a picture or video of the dressing room layout, just so you guys can understand. Yes, it was a baseball stadium dressing room, but it's still pretty small. Even though it's big enough to fit a baseball team in there, it's pretty small. You know what's going on in the dressing room if you're in the dressing room. And as I've stated before, I wrestled for WWC Puerto Rico in 2005, 2006, and a very small bit in 2007. I didn't find Carlos Colon to be a very honest guy. You really had to fight for your pay. So I can understand how Brody may have had pay issues, of course. Brody would have been making a lot more than I made there, as Brody was wrestling there during the peak period of WWC when they were getting massive crowds. They weren't getting as big crowds when I wrestled there. A great crowd would have been between 2,000 or 3,000 rather than the 15,000 to 20,000 in Brody's prime. And the reason I actually stopped wrestling for them was pay issues. And for the people that said, well, how could you wrestle for them after what happened with Bruiser Brody? YouTube really has only become a huge thing in recent years, probably the last 5-10 years, and it is continuing to grow. These stories were still more folklore in the time I was wrestling there. However, I have stated, and I'll state it again, I did have an eerie feeling in the dressing room in those days. Just knowing what happened, like I always had a weird feeling in my stomach, and I couldn't ever bring myself to shower in the dressing room there because it was just too weird. Invader didn't work for WWC Puerto Rico when I wrestled for WWC Puerto Rico. He did work for IWA Puerto Rico when I wrestled for IWA Puerto Rico throughout most of 2005. I wouldn't say we ever got along great, but it was very business-like with him and I. We never really had any issues. I remember the only issue that I had with Invader was on my very last night working for IWA Puerto Rico. I had driven out to Ponce, where at the time I lived in Carolina, Puerto Rico. I forget what the drive is, maybe 2 hours maximum. And they told me they weren't going to use me on this TV taping. And I said, can I go then? And he was like, what, you want to go? He was like acting like I was out of line for wanting to go. But the fact of the matter was, I had a girlfriend in Puerto Rico at that time. Why would I want to hang out in an arena that's boiling hot? They don't have air conditioning at most arenas there. You guys are not going to be using me on the show, and I basically have nothing to do. So why would I not want to go back home with my girlfriend who had driven me to the show that night? So there was a little bit of tension. I remember that. He was a little mad that I didn't want to stay for a TV taping I wasn't being used on. And I did even, and this was the other funny thing, Pablo Marquez can confirm this. He played Babu in WWE for a while. That was Tiger Jeet Singh's second. And he had put me over coming in to IWA Puerto Rico. And I remember telling Invader, I said, you know, if you want, Pablo's still wrestling for you. I'll do a job match, or I'll put Pablo over in the ring. I'm here. I'm all the way here. You may as well use me for something. And he said, nah, I don't want to do that. And he said that right in front of Pablo and I. So I thought that was a bad booking mistake, because I ended up going to WWC. I literally started wrestling for WWC the next week. So I did feel tension between us that night, but other than that, it was always business between Invader and I. It was usually Luke Williams giving the finishes, but Invader would give the finishes sometimes, and he was the disciplined guy. But I never had any problems in IWA Puerto Rico. I really liked wrestling for them, and I didn't know the full story on the Brody thing until later years.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.